saying at our seminary. It's only been a month since we were ordained. The saying goes like this. When Deacon Brady gives a homily, it's like getting a nice warm hug. And when Deacon John gives a homily, it's like getting punched in the face. So I want to give you this as a warning. Any pain you're about to experience, I apologize in advance. Before I give a rather painful homily, I have to do something more painful, which is ask you for money. I'm not here just to preach to you, but we lose our jobs, and we don't get ordained priests if we don't go out once a year and beg you for money. In your pews are these nice blue flyers. You're welcome to take them home. There's also going to be a second collection at the end of the Mass. There's 125 men studying for Denver right now who don't know how to cook, don't know how to provide for themselves. So if you don't give us money, you're probably going to starve to death. This parish has given us many, many prayers. It's given us many vocations, and it's given us a lot of financial support in the past. So the main reason I'm here is to say thank you on behalf of the seminary community, on behalf of Deacon Brady and myself, and to ask you that in any way you can, please continue to support us. Now to the painful homily. I was standing at the edge of the cliff. On my left, my brother Steve. On my right, my good friend Shannon. It's a true story. Now, we were at the edge of a cliff, so immediately I wasn't thinking of myself. On my left, I have a guy who suffers from extreme ADD, who can fall off at any moment. On my right is a woman who's rather melancholic, who might just jump at any moment. But at this moment, none of us are actually looking down at the cliff. We're looking straight ahead. We're looking 30 miles across the Fairplay Valley. See, we were camping on the edge of the cliff, and we saw something across the valley, 30 miles. It was magnificent, but it was horrifying at the same time. I turned to Shannon on my right and I said, "What is that big, huge black wall that's coming towards us?" She immediately looks down and goes, "It's a storm, it's going to destroy us, we have no hope of living, I can't believe we're dying next to you two idiots." I said, "Pull yourself together." I turned to my left and I said, "Steve, what's that huge black wall coming towards us?" And he goes, "What black wall?" "That black wall. It's the size of the sky and it's coming towards us." "Oh." I said, "Focus, pay attention." We watched as the largest thunderstorm I have ever seen in my life slowly, but very in a scary way, moved across this valley. And it got more and more thrilling, more and more exciting as it got closer and closer. And we just sat there. And then eventually we realized, we got to get out of here. So we ran back into the tent. Now, what is a tent going to do? Almost nothing. No other option. We thought, well, we'll just ride this thing out. We went back into the tent, but we had a fourth friend who was with us. And this friend, his name was Peter. A month before that, he had been ordained a priest, so now he was Father Peter. Father Peter said, "Well, why don't we just say Mass?" This is a very beautiful moment, a very exciting moment, a very scary moment. As the storm got closer and closer and started to hit, and the tent started to shake, and thunder started to strike, and snow started to come down, we began Mass. Halfway through the Mass, I said, "Steve, did you put out the fire?" "What fire?" I said, "You're the Boy Scout, that was your job." So we ran outside, put out the fire, run back in to Mass. Now, why do I tell you this story? It was one of the most terrifying moments of my life, being in that tent. But there was something about being in that tent and about being in that storm that was different than being in a tent and being a storm. It was because Mass was happening, because Jesus Christ was present in the midst of the storm, despite the poverty and the pathetic cloth tent that was supposed to protect us. There was something about the comfort of the Eucharistic presence of Jesus Christ in that tent that night that put our hearts at ease, put Shannon's heart at ease, Steve's heart at ease. Now I'd like to speak to the freshmen here, because I know there are many of you who just signed up for confirmation. This is directly to you. The storm of temptation, of anxiety, of fear is about to hit. If it hasn't hit in your life, it's going to hit you very soon. Where will you go when it hits? You could be like Steve, pretend like it doesn't exist. You could be like Shannon, totally despair. You could be like me, trying to be like, it's cool, we'll just ride this thing out. Those are 3 really bad responses to high school temptations. Do not copy us. Run into the tent of the church. Look at where we are right now. Imagine this as a tent. You have come in tonight, out of the storms of life, the storms of anxiety, the storms of fear, the storms of insecurity, the storms of despair. The thunderstorm of high school is the greatest and the most dangerous that you will ever experience, because you can lose your soul, because you can die in that storm. And many have died before you in that storm. Run to the tent of the church. Even if you're not impressed by it, it doesn't look that strong. Prayer seems difficult. I'm not that impressed with the preaching. The sacraments don't seem real. In the same way for me, it didn't seem like the tent had much to do with my safety. But the tent, the church, is not your safety. It's the presence of Jesus Christ in the tent. The presence of Jesus Christ in the church that is your safety. He is your stronghold. In the Middle Ages, the monks had a beautiful phrase. They would say, "Stat crucis dum volvitur orbis." The cross stands while the world spins. Look at this cross. It stands here day after day, hour after hour. As we leave, we live our life, we spin, we come back. It stands. Christ stands at the center of this church. If you are here tonight and you feel like you're spun up, you feel like you're lost in a storm, you feel like you have no hope, come and sit at the foot of that cross and hold on to it. He is your safety. He is your strength. He is your protection in the storm. When I was a freshman in high school, I got dragged into this tent through a confirmation program. Dragged in against my will. I told my parents I'd rather die in the storm than be in the tent with those people. Dragged into the tent. And you know what? It was the best thing that ever happened to me. It was the best thing, the most important thing, the most beautiful thing that ever happened to me. I was dragged into the tent, and I was saved from the storm. And I've watched many of my friends choose to stay out in the storms of life, the storms of high school, and to be swept away and destroyed. I've watched it. It can happen. We have to stay in the tent because Christ is in the tent. People often ask me, "John, do you really believe all of this God stuff? Do you really believe all of this? All this, you promised celibacy, you're doing all these things, do you really believe it?" And I look at them, and I want to yell. I was dead! I was dead in the storms of sin, and now I live in Jesus Christ. You ask me now, I know that this is true. I say to them, I was dead, and now I live. I am a son of the resurrection. That is how I know it's true. That is how I know it's true. Our first reading today is of the Maccabees, and it calls for a revolution. A revolution against the Greeks. The Maccabees were Jews. The Maccabees were Jews who were fed up with the Greeks trying to convert them, trying to lead them into the world. What we need today, and what we need right now, is a revolution. We need a revolution to happen in the hearts of young people today. Now I turn from freshmen and I speak to the men. My next words are to every man in this church. Will you join me in leaving the tent tonight? Will you go out from the tent to bring souls in? What the world needs more than anything is strong, men who with the power of Christ will leave and go back into the storm. Go back into the storm to bring in those souls who have died, those souls who are wounded, those souls who are not able to come in themselves. In short, we need a Maccabean revolt. The men in this church need to rise up together and become the spiritual force that will go back into the world of darkness, go back into the storm of sin, and be strength and be hope in bringing people back into the church. We need Christ. We need His strength. But most of all, we need to be in the tent. We need to be in the church. There is nothing else that matters in this life. And you may look at me and you say, yeah, I've heard all this before. Yeah, you're right, this is really intense. Yeah, I feel like you just punched me in the face. But I'm telling you, I was in those pews for many years. I had my arms crossed. I was in the back row. And I was dead. I was dead in my selfishness. And I thought to myself, tonight, this may be the only chance I ever have to preach this. And all I desire is to say to you, do not die in the storms of sin and selfishness. Do not give in to the temptations of high school. They look so alluring. They look so compelling. They look so real. They're not. They're not real. What is real is right here. What is real is right here. What is most real is what stands. The cross stands while the world revolves.